another talk. I would like to introduce a paper based upon a work. And I call it How the Self Confers Power Upon the Ego. And it's a very ambiguous name for this paper because it sounds kind of egotistical. How the self confers power upon the ego. But it'll be understood here at the end of the main paper. Now, it is an analysis of the Heddernheim Mithraic Releif, and I wrote a note up here that says, since 1824, 4 mithrae have been found at Nida, Heddernheim in Germany, city of Frankfurt, and that's where possibly some of the insert pictures that I will be placing, and the text itself is speaking about some of the plates found at that site. So stepping into this small lecture here, and I will try to get through this as fast as I can because I want to give you guys first and foremost backstory on why this topic is of interest to me, and I do want to give some input on basically what some of the information behind the idea of Mithras is, and why it's also important. So first and foremost, this is why this topic's important to me, right? I had a dream late in 2019, and I'm going to give you the dream backstory, right? At the time, in 2019, I had no real previous knowledge of about Mithras really, other than that which had been implanted into Christianity because I had been heavily involved in Christianity most all my life, right? That's one possible angle how it entered into my unconscious, right? Also, the second angle is that of the collective unconscious and its archetypes that must have been at play if anything else could have been the reason. There are times when you'll have dreams that are of large import to you, big wake-up moments, and a lot of times you can trace the dream activity and the dream imagery back to mythological archetypes that are present in everybody's unconscious. And the thing is those archetypes will actually be present in myths that you can use to unfold information on the dream imagery, etc., etc. Okay, so no real previous knowledge of Mithras other than that which had been implanted, and then it's possible that the personal unconscious was at play. So anyways, right, the dream took place in the nighttime, and the nighttime represents the unconscious. It was on a country dirt road leading to an unknown destination in the night. And that part there where it's talking about in the night, there's a dirt road leading to an unknown destination in the night. The night is the way to where the mystery unfolds. It is the unconscious, okay? The mystery. Here's where it leads to the mystery. Now, in the dream as it unfolds, a man's behind me, or is it a person? But was it a man? I don't even know, right? And this man was speaking to me from the inside, so I was hearing this man's voice. In front of me is a bull I have by the chin lifting its head up. This man has also given me a knife. Deep inside, I know I must slice the bull's neck. And as I go to commit the deed, I wake up. Consciously awake, I feel energized and amazed at the dream imagery, amazed at what it could have meant, and have the feeling or sense that I had been at the center of a very important ritual, a very important ritual indeed. And one of the postulated meanings that I can give to it prima facie, I don't want to really get into having too extra long of a discussion because we have some things to read here. The meaning of it is possibly that it represents the beginning of the step towards proper integration of wild animalistic energy. Also, libido direction towards proper and beneficial use, which is towards awakening, right? And just to give a little bit more information, during this time in 2019, I was going through some really, really rough, hard times, and was becoming more consciously aware. And my rampant libido energy, especially from 2019 on back, had gotten me into a lot of trouble, had been the cause of my life being changed a lot of times for the worst, and other people's lives being changed a lot of times for the worst. Had it not been for organizations that I was a part of during that time to kind of offset some of the outrageous, crazy libidinal activity, I probably would not be here right now at this present time speaking to you on this channel. So, moving forward, to develop an understanding, if you will, of the idea of Mithraism, right? And I'm not a big scholar on Mithraism. I basically unpacked the dream and unpacked what it meant to me, and have had several other dreams with the bull imagery in there and the slaying of the bull imagery. And it's a myth that's of great import to me because it goes back to a calling that's inside of me. It goes back to a myth that I'm living out in some ways in my day-to-day life, and when I really find myself in the midst of affairs that I have to focus my energy on. And that's because, at the end of the day, I do a lot of combat sports. I'm not focusing my libido on things, or my psychic energy on things that I used to, but it's that energy, for better or worse, that kept me alive and is the reason why I'm still here, because that energy is also a survival energy as well. But anyways, I'm going to read and give a little bit of background on Mithraism. I'm going to read through this quickly. I'm not going to annotate any pictures or anything on this. Just listen as you can. I'm going to breeze through it as fast as I can so that I can get into the paper material. So, Mithraism. Mithraism, also known as the Mithraic Mysteries or Cult of Mithras, was a Roman mystery religion centered on the god Mithras. Although inspired by Iranian worship of the Zoroastrian divinity Yazada Mithra, the Roman Mithras is linked to a new and distinctive imagery with a level of continuity between Persian and Greco-Roman practice, and that's debated. Okay, the mysteries were popular among the Imperial Roman army from about 1st to 4th century CE, and I may leave links to where I got this information from Wiki. Mithra, commonly known as Mer, is the Iranian deity of covenant, light, oath, justice, and the sun. And I'm going to throw a sun chart in this as well, though, too, so you can see what ideas link to the sun. Libido is one of them, etc. In addition to this being the divinity of contracts, Mithra is also a judicial figure, an all-seeing protector of truth, and the guardian of cattle, the harvest, and of the waters. Like most other divinities, Mithra is not mentioned by name in the Gathas, the oldest text of Zoroastrianism, and traditionally attributed to Zoroaster himself, or by name in the Yasha Haptan Gaiti. Probably butchered that name terribly. A 7-verse section of the Yasna liturgy that is linguistically as old as the Gathas. Now I'm going to get into the ritual enactments, because looking at the ritual will kind of maybe give you a little bit of understanding of Mithras and what this deity is about. Reconstruction of a Mithraeum with a mosaic depicting the grades of initiation, activities of the most prominent deities in the Mithric scenes, Sol and Mithras, were imitated in rituals by the two most senior officers of the cult's hierarchy, the Pater and the Heliodromus. The initiates held a sacramental banquet replicating the feast of Mithras and Sol. In Zoroastrianism, and we have to go to Zoroastrianism because this is where Mithraism comes about. It's a Roman duplicate of this religion or this belief, right? So anyways, in Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda is the beginning and the end, the creator of everything that can and cannot be seen, the eternal and uncreated, the all good and source of Asha. In the Gathas, the most sacred text of Zoroastrianism, thought to have been composed by Zoroaster himself. Zoroaster acknowledged the highest devotion to Ahura Mazda, with worship and adoration also given to Ahura Mazda's manifestations, Amesha Spenta, and the other Ahuras, Yazada, that support Ahura Mazda. Diana, Din, which is where we probably get jinn in the Muslim belief. Din, modern Persian and meaning that which is seen, is representative of the sum of one's spiritual conscience and attributes, which through one's choice Asha is either strengthened or weakened in the Dana. The fundamental principle of Asha is believed to be the cosmic order which governs and permeates all existence, and the concept of which governed the life of the ancient Indo-Iranians. For these, Asha was the course of everything observable, the motion of the planets and astral bodies, the progression of the seasons, and the pattern of daily nomadic herdsman life governed by regular metronomic events such as sunrise and sunset, and was strengthened through truth-telling and following the threefold path. This statement here kind of corresponds to the idea of Dharma, which is cosmic law, and which shows up as laws that are basically in the universe that end up as karma, actions, and their effects. Now, they spoke about the Dana, right? And they also spoke of as the word din. Very quickly, that kind of possibly gets into the idea of the daemon, which is an entity that everybody has in the idea, right? The theory that everybody has, that is motivated and moved through in their life towards a calling, towards a purpose, towards fate and destiny. All right, and you're aligning with that entity, with that energy, with that flow, with that being, if you will, can either make your life greater, happier, a better occasion, or it can make it very rough because you're not aligning with almost like a personalized cosmic purpose. So, continuing forward, the cosmology or creation of the universe, according to the Zoroastrian creation myth, Ahura Mazda existed in light and goodness above, while Angra Manu existed in darkness and ignorance below. They have existed independently of each other for all time and manifest contrary substances. Ahura Mazda first manifested 7 divine beings called Amesha Spentas. 7 divine beings called Amesha Spentas. And if we think about that, we just got done talking about in the last video about the Elohim, the 7 creative principles that God manifested to create man in all life, etc., man in his own image down the line, okay? And they're angelic deities. So let's continue. Ahura Mazda then created the material and visible world itself in order to ensnare evil. And I spoke in that last video as well, though, too, that the whole idea behind the devil is the generation of matter, and matter in a lot of philosophies is termed as that which is evil, along with ignorance, right? Ahura Mazda created the floating egg-shaped universe in 2 parts. First, the spiritual Minog, and 3,000 years later, the physical Getik. Ahura Mazda then created Gaiomard, the archetypal perfect man, who we could also say is Adam Kadmon in the Hebrew idea, and Gave Vodata, the primordial bovine. While Ahura Mazda created the universe and humankind, Angria Manu, whose very nature is to destroy miscreated demons, evil devas, and noxious creatures, Croft stars, what they're called, such as snakes, ants, and flies. Angria Manu created an opposite evil being for each good being, except for humans, which he found he could not match. Now, I was once told that flies and all those creatures came as a manifestation of a curse upon Egypt. Okay, and Egypt represents to the Hebrew mind bondage, evil, etc., etc. So we could see that if that is the case, and this is all metaphoric anyways, though, it's possible that all those things that we do not like, as far as these ants, flies, mosquitoes, different things like that, possibly came from a curse, from an oppressive, archetypal bondage type energy. All right, let's continue. Now, Angria Manu invaded the universe through the base of the sky, inflicting Gaiomard and the bull with suffering and death. However, the evil forces were trapped in the universe and could not retreat. The dying primordial man and bovine emitted seeds which were protected by Ma, the moon. From the bull's seed grew all beneficial plants and animals of the world, and from man's seed grew a plant whose leaves became the first human couple, i.e. the physical Adam and Eve after a syncretic rendering, right? If we will. Humans thus struggle in a twofold universe of the material and spiritual, trapped and in long combat with evil. The evils of this physical world are not products of an inherent weakness, but are the fault of Angria Manu's assault on creation. This assault turned the perfectly flat, peaceful, and everyday lit world into a mountainous, violent place that is half night. So now I think it's important that we get into the idea of renovation and judgment, because now that the world's created and things are going crazy and there's a constant struggle, battle, etc., now we should get into what is the redemptive idea. Zorostrianism also includes beliefs about the renovation of the world, Fra Sho Kereti, and individual judgment, cf. general and particular judgment, including the resurrection of the dead, which are alluded to in the Gathas, but developments in later Avestan and Middle Persian writings. And individual judgment at death is at the Chinvat Bridge, the bridge of judgment or bridge of choice, which each human must cross facing a spiritual judgment, though modern belief is split as to whether it is representative of a mental decision during life to choose between good and evil or an afterworld location. Humans' actions under their free will through choice determine the outcome. According to the tradition, the soul is judged by the Yazadas, Mithra, Sraosha, and Rashnu, where, depending on the verdict, one is either greeted at the bridge by a beautiful, sweet-smelling maiden, or by an ugly, foul-smelling old hag representing their Diana, affected by their actions in life. Now, I'm going to say something about that, though. That the beautiful maiden and the old hag can represent their Diana and the actions that, based upon the actions that they took. Now that gets into the idea of the anima, all right, because a lot of times in dreams we'll have dreams of an old hag, which is that's an anima image, you know what I mean, if it's for a man. We have an image also too of the highest and most beautiful woman in the dream. that is an anima image as well, though, too, though. You know what I mean? And that's usually it's a higher image. It's an image that can represent something more peaceful than seeing a witch. Sometimes people see this during the witch, rather, the old hag, during sleep paralysis. And that's another story that I want to get into when speaking about the daemon. But the Diana has somewhat of an import of that idea. All right. So the maiden leads the dead safely across the bridge, which widens and becomes pleasant for the righteous towards the house of song. The hag leads the dead down a bridge that narrows to a razor's edge and is full of stench until the departed falls off into the abyss towards the house of lies. Those with a balance of good and evil go to Hamistagan, a purgatorial realm mentioned in the 9th century work of Dedistan-I Denig. The house of lies is considered temporary and reformative. Punishments fit the crimes, and souls do not rest in eternal damnation. Hell contains foul smells and evil food, a smothering darkness, and souls are packed tightly together, although they believe they are in total isolation. And that idea of hell, where all the souls are compressed so totally together, but you believe you're in isolation, that kind of gets to the darker personification of the shadow, which is also daemon imagery that can manifest itself to you. And I will talk about this once again, because it's something I believe of great import when it comes to shadow work. So we'll continue on. In ancient Zoroastrian eschatology, a 3,000-year struggle between good and evil will be fought, punctuated by evil's final assault. During the final assault, the sun and moon will darken, and humankind will lose its reverence for religion, family, and elders. The world will fall into winter, and angry Amanu's most fearsome miscreant Azid Dahaka will break free and terrorize the world. According to the legend, the final savior of the world, known as Saoshyant, will be born to a virgin impregnated by the seed of Zoroaster while bathing in a lake. The Saoshyant will raise the dead, including those in all afterworlds, for final judgment, returning the wicked to hell to be purged of bodily sin. Next, all will wade through a river of molten metal in which the righteous will not burn, but through which the impure will be completely purified. And on that note, too, very quickly, I had a dream that was one of those big dreams, and this imagery of being purged through fire at the end of the world, this imagery of the righteous being able to go through the fire and come into the next world, right? I had a dream that had some of those same imports as well, though, too. And I think at some point during some of these little publications here, I'll share that information as well, though, too, though. But it's so amazing how symbology is embedded in all of these stories. And if you don't just read over them, you'll be woken up with insights in just the nature of these scripts. But anyways, the forces of good will ultimately triumph over evil, rendering it forever impotent but not destroyed. The Saoshyant and Ahura Mazda will offer a bull as a final sacrifice for all time, and all humans will become immortal. And that gets into the iconography of Mithra slaying the bull, of even the dream that I had, and it gives also a rendering of what that might mean. What the import of having a dream like that might mean is that through the sacrifice of this bull, there is some type of immortality, there's some type of gnosis that occurs, some type of knowledge that occurs that allows for me or anybody that has a dream like that, that's quote unquote, because when you have a dream like that, you're living out this myth in some way, shape, fashion, or form. It's ringing that bell in the graveyard and telling you, pay attention to this, you're living out this myth. So anyways, continuing forward, Mountains will again flatten and valleys will rise. The house of song will descend to the moon and the earth will rise to meet them both. Humanity will require two judgments because there are as many aspects to our being, spiritual menog and physical getik. Thus Zoroastrianism can be said to be a universalist religion with respect to salvation, in that all souls are redeemed at the final judgment. And just based on that reading, if you were paying attention and listening, I was listening to it as I was reading it, and it basically goes to show that there are a lot of the same imports in Christianity. And that's why I was saying, upon reading the dream information, is that it's a possibility that through my life growing up as a Christian and through the historical dissemination and of certain knowledge during certain times, and the fact that Mithraism was kind of at its decline as Christianity was on its rise. There's a chance that certain individuals that put Christianity out there met up with certain Mithrais, or possibly were Mithrais, and continued a lot of the ideas in the text. It's possible. I'm just throwing out a conjecture. Possible, or it's just simply the collective unconscious and the symbols from the collective unconscious that span throughout time, which is throughout all history, throughout all cultures, throughout all religions. We can find the same symbols of certain deities and certain ideas of the same deities in different cultures, right? So I'm going to get to the paper now, moving along. Now, let's see where we're going to start here. Okay, this paper, I was reading a book that somebody got for me. My lady actually got it for me. And it's a book by E.F. Edinger called Transformation and Libido. And this is written on Carl Gustav's larger work called Transformation and Libido. And this is the book that, that he put out. And it's really the idea that split him and Freud. He basically came from Freud's line of psychoanalysis, from Freud's line of psychology, but they had differences of different ideas on the libido and what it was. You can look at Freud's works and everything seems to be very sexualized, very sexual oriented, very pointed at very, it seems like it's very sexualized, you know what I mean? The phallus, incest ideas, but you have to look past what is being said and look deeper. But the split up actually allowed Jung to disseminate some larger ideas that he had, and everything happens for a reason, as far as split ups are concerned. And usually what ends up happening is that the differing viewpoints, you can bring them back together and get a more holistic picture of even what the other was saying through the lens of the latter that came and disseminated information based upon what he learned with the other. So anyways, that's what this writing is basically on an excerpt from Transformation and Libido, as pertains to the Mithraic reliefs, the Heddernheim reliefs of Mithras. So I will continue forward, and the name of this talk will basically be How the Self Confers Power Upon the Ego, analysis of the Heddernheim Mithraic Releif through the lens of Jung on the topic of personal revolution. And then I will use the Proto-Indo-European root BHER, which has all of the information about each step of this included in its description. All right, so here we go. The first part or the first plate is the birth of Mithras from the top of the tree. That's how it's written in the actual book. But there are stories conflicting saying that Mithras was born from a stone or a rock. And this, in my eyes, and I wrote this down. Okay, so some of my own ideas on this. This alludes to Mithras being the transpersonal made flesh. All right, or God made flesh, in a way you could say, right? The word birth links to the PIE or Proto-Indo-European root BHER, and I'm gonna put that on the screen. That way you can look at the meanings of it as pertains to what we're talking about here. And let me see. And I wrote here on the side. I'm gonna read that here quickly. PIEBHER1 confers meaning upon all three portions of this idea, from birth to conquering to assuming the crown of glory. So I kind of gave you a sneak peek into the rest of what I'm going to talk about here. And it gets kind of radical. It gets kind of into an idea where you might say, like, man, this is like some, power to the ego, nihilistic almost type of literature, if one takes it that way. And I'm going to flesh this out in such a way where you can understand where the train of thought of this whole idea is going. But anyways, plate number 2, and the first plate is plate number 40. All right, the second plate is plate 49A. So 2, carrying the slain and conquered bull. He's carrying it on his shoulders. All right, the overcoming of and this is my writing on this. The overcoming of the rampant excesses of libido is what I believe that this represents. Also could be the capacity of the desire function, personalized, canalized, and integrated in such a way as to overcome the more excessive and cumbersome imprisoning aspects of society and social life, with its demands, which makes the conqueror a docile and predictable, controllable specimen. And just really quick, commenting on this, is inside of each and every one of us, the libido is telling us to go and do something, to do this, to do that, to move on a situation, maybe, and it's maybe in some ways it's kind of going against the grain, that has been set in such a way where thou shalt follow this, and that, and only that. And the thing is a lot of people will go for that though, but inside of each and every person there is on one end a feeling to rebel, and on another end there is a difference in opinion, and those are two different things. There's a difference in opinion, and sometimes you have to integrate your right to disagree and to move and go on the other way, you know what I mean, and live your truth. But that takes assuming a burden, and when you assume that burden, you also carry its weight. And a lot of times as you're carrying that weight, there's a thorn in your side sometimes that's saying, man, I wish maybe this is the wrong idea, maybe I should just go back and do it their way, or maybe I should try to find a way to reassimilate somehow. And sometimes some people will have an awakening that, maybe I shouldn't have taken this on or done this at all. But I think that sometimes that's for real. Sometimes that's a repurposing of an understanding that, yeah, maybe I took on too much. Maybe I need to change my views. But at the same time though too, some people are headed in a direction, and if they were to do that, it would be a slap in the face of some higher calling that they had, and that they had to continue forward with though. So it's a matter of really weighing out the two, which is which. So, and if all could live that way, if they did so, if all could take the calling that they have that may be going against the grain of society, or may be going against the grain of this is what you should do. And why? Because all these other people before said a long time ago you should do it this way. If all could live in a way that is guided by a higher purpose, or guided by a calling that may conflict with the rules and conflict with the way that things are just laid out as thou shalt, it would be the equivalent of Jung's attribution to Samson of carrying away the gates of the city, due to the fact that one such conqueror is conscious, dangerous, prepared to act upon that which would be termed as an opposer. So the thing is when you're willing to, and when you have the impulse to, and when you have the feeling and desire to, and you really know that it's just not a passe feeling to go against the grain of just what is just normally just laid out there, and maybe something you've been doing for years, you don't agree with it, you know, when you have that impulse to do that, you become a conqueror. You're taking your life kind of into your own hands. This is what entrepreneurs do when they break free and break away from the common 9 to 5 Monday through Friday work order, you know. A long time ago I was studying some literature on sociology, and they term entrepreneurs as social deviant groups. They deviate from the norm of society. Good for them, and a lot of them make great money doing so. You know, they're following out their own individuality by sometimes putting out products that they endorse and that they know that there's a need for, and they stop working their job at McDonald's or wherever else they're working to make money selling what it is that they're selling and doing what it is that they're doing on their own time and offhand, right? So on the reverse side, the docile ones would be sitting as prey in fear of an open border from whence all or any desiring could attack. Now, a lot of us have been in that position when we link ourselves to groups in society, when we link ourselves to the commoner's life, and we're all born into it. That's like being born into the womb of the mother. We're stuck there, and we're in the breast of the mother, sucking the same milk from all the rest of her kids, and it's the same old thing. It's the same expectancy. It's the same. You're getting what everybody else should expect. A la, voila, the American dream. You know, great. You know, and for those that prescribe to the norm, great. But if you do some things in your life that are outside of the norm, and you're enthused by them, and you're driven to do those things, more power to you, because it really takes you out of a normal life. It really takes you to apply yourself to something unique and individual about yourself. And some people may see you go through your downs as opposed to your ups, and they might be clapping on the sideline. You see, I thought I told you. That's probably what they say. But the truth of the matter is, because you're on your own path and you're going your own way, you don't even feel the blunt. You don't even feel the full force of the crushing power of your downfalls, because you know there's going to be an upward stire. And the individuals that are docile, that are sitting in those places of just accepting the normal thing. Oh yeah, Mr. Such and Such, he should have never left a job, or Mrs. Such and Such, she should have never, decided to go and become an entrepreneur and do her own thing. You see, her business is suffering right now. Who knows? Her business 2 months from now might take an upstire, and before they know it, she's a millionaire, and they're all like sulking, looking at themselves. Why am I still doing the same thing? And the thing is if they were put, now this is getting to the next part of it, if they were put in the place of the individual that is doing their own thing and going against the grain of society, if you will, going against the grain of the norm that is widely accepted and widely prescribed to by the mass individual, right? If they were put in that situation, they would have the feeling almost of an individual in a society with no borders, where anybody could come, plunder, and take. And that's because they would not have that safety net around them of a paycheck, of receiving something that they know that they would get if they just continue to do slavishly what they're supposed to do normally and acceptably and in the way that the master says to do so. So continuing on the reverse side, the docile ones would be sitting as prey in fear of an open border from whence all or any desiring to could attack. This symbolizes preparation, ability in the face of dire circumstances, and on the reverse, a lack of preparation due to complacency in the mother's or the city's arms and reliance upon the same type of men aforementioned, the soldiers, the people that are taking their lives in their own hands, right? They're relying on the soldiers, the conscious, the prepared to assist them in time of need. Imagine that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the idea of the Proto-Indo-European root that sums this portion up. The word bear, suffer, opprobrium, suffering for one's cause or actions, and being given a name. Oh, that quitter, that dissenter, oh, this social deviant, man, this foul miscreant, these different things that get said or get told to you when you go against the grain, when you go outside the norm to get your sustenance. All right. Sambal is another word that comes into this idea, and it's from the Sanskrit word barati. He carries, he brings, and that's in Piebher, one. And Bharati, I went on a little side note, I'm going to read this. Bharati is represented as the goddess of revolution, consort of Vayu, wind, air, and that's an air deity, of which she is the physical and auditory effects and affects, right? For example, energy from the breath. So when you breathe, your body gets energy. Your body is filled with life. Your body is filled with the ability to move forward, to go. When you have no life, when you have no breath, you're choked out. There's unconsciousness, right? She is the daughter of the flame of sustenance, goddess of the winds of change. Change is a big thing in this too. In order to change, make a change from the normal life, I basically have to die to this life to become something new, and that takes pain, that takes discomfort, that takes me out of my normal element. That's why most people will be like, I'm not gonna do it. They're not gonna follow their libido, they're not gonna follow their direction, they're not gonna follow the plan that's being placed into them that continues. Man, wouldn't you want to be doing this? Wouldn't you want to be doing that? They're not gonna follow that. They're not gonna follow that because of fear. All right. So continuing on, Bharati is dressed in green. That's a life-giving aspect. She has a flame in one hand, which represents purification. So there's purification if you're approaching the libido in a right way, in a way that you can canalize it into something that's appropriate, because you can also go off and be revolutionary and do something that's going to get you locked up, killed, or worse. You know what I mean? So there's rebirth, there's power that comes from following the true will, but also too, you have to also think of it this way: are you willing to really give your life for a cause that is, for something that is necessary that you may have to give your life for, that you may end up having to get a gang of time for, that you may end up having to die for? Are you really ready to make that choice? And the thing is there are certain causes that are honorable that you may have to give your life for. I know individuals that have fought wars that they, you know, regardless of political idea, they really truly in their soul, in their heart, in their mind, in all of their being, felt that they were made to do that, felt that they were following their destiny, and felt that they were doing what they were supposed to do no matter what it is that they had to do. All right? And if we look at the creation of the Americas and the way that things came together in that whole ordeal, all the death, all the misgiving, all the slavery, the torture, the lies, the backstabbing, the cheating, and all the different things. Now, if we think now, after all this time, now the slavery's over and there still are misgivings, there still lies, there still is cheating and all this other different stuff, right? All the freedoms that we enjoy because of that. Sometimes a sacrifice has to be made, right? So now the flame that's in her hand represents purification, sacrifice, life, and libido. Desire, energy for living, which that sacrifice could be constructive, but through destruction. Now, we're going to get to the third plate, which is 24A, which shows Mithras reaching for the nimbus on the head of soul. And to me, this is what this would represent, or what this could mean. Now, this would mean, to me, this was my interpretation of it, the ego that is empowered, not inflated by the fact that he or she is in fact divine, and is acting upon the fact not by ego autonomy but by divine inspiration, and reaches for what is his or hers by right, out of necessity, which is fate, destiny, and by force, by compelling, by violence if need be, and by rampant energy. See Bia, which is the Greek goddess that was worshipped alongside of the goddess which is called necessity, Ananke. All right? And this is a real provocative, I found this a very provocative study to do, because there's so many ambiguous ideas here, so many different thoughts, different interpretations, different feelings that this would evoke in somebody. Going against the grain, possibly being a lawbreaker. Oh my goodness! Oh, you can't say that, or you can't. There are some people possibly that are watching this now. You can't do that, you know. But it's something to think about, that maybe you have received a calling in which you will have to make a sacrifice, and that calling is dying to be lived out with inside of you. And maybe some way, somehow, as I've talked about in many other videos that I've posted here on this channel, that there is a way to canalize that. But canalization is also a form of retreating back to the mother, which is just like the city, just like the people in the city holding faith in the walls of the city, you know. For instance, like I said, I do combat sports, and you know, if I'm to, you know, get angry and choke somebody out in the streets, woo, here comes the police. You're going to jail. That's assault. But I can do it on the mats. I can do it in a tournament. And if somebody's leg gets broken or somebody gets put to sleep, I'm not going to be charged or held accountable for that, because we all sign a release of liability. But the same application of my libido through the canalization of the martial arts and the advocation and the ability to compete and do these things which are possibly illegal if I do them on the street or somewhere else, they could be the same thing that can harm me. And I've been hurt in competitions. I've had both of my knees hyperextended. Most people would say, man, dude, like, I'd quit after that, but it wasn't such a bad thing for me. It wasn't such a hard thing for me to go through because of the love and because of the impulse that I felt to continue, because this advocation, this canalization of this crazy energy, right, this libido energy within me through martial arts gave me a place to put it all in a situation that I could live these things out and do these things and not get in trouble. See, so I'm saying all that to say that you need to find something that helps you to canalize your calling and canalize that higher influx of energy that's telling you to do this, that, these, or the others. Or there may be things you're doing in secret or in the dark that are not acceptable. You need to find a way to canalize those things so that they can be put in an acceptable format. You see? And that's where I'm going with this. So continuing on, the last thing I put in parentheses about the reaching out to the nimbus of soul, right, is a nimbus is a luminous cloud or halo surrounding a supernatural being or saint, and it's also a large gray rain cloud. So it's almost too like maybe Mithras, in reaching out for that nimbus, was not reaching out for the crown of the self, but it is said that God in the Bible, the God of the Bible, and we've already read that Mithraism shares a lot of the same ideas, a lot of the same stories, a lot of the same mythological content as Christianity. And we have been told that God showed himself to the Israelites as a cloud by day, a pillar, a cloud by day, and as a pillar of fire by night. So this reaching out towards this nimbus or cloud might have even been like Mithras in a way, showing like, I don't want the light to be shrouded from me. I want to know my calling. I want to reach the height of my calling. I want to see the pure light of soul, the pure light of the self. I want to have an encounter with the transpersonal. And that's what we're saying when we take our lives into our own hands, and when we take our calling into our own hands. And in the face of opprobrium, in the face of ridicule, in the face of obstruction, in the face of individuals that might want to stop us, we still do so. Now, I continue to say, now here, this is the ego's ability through divine connection to overcome that which shrouds him, keeps him down in obscurity. In the fourth picture, okay, and I'm not going to get to the fourth picture just yet. Let me read the third caption for the Proto-Indo-European root. And I put here the Latin saying, Fortuna favora juvat, which means fortune favors the bold. And Fortuna was a goddess who governs the four-cornered wheel of fortune. Her father is Jupiter, who is, in the Hebrew idea, Al or Jehovah, and is said to be like him. Ovid states she proves her own unsteadiness by the fickle wheel and stands at its apex. So she is, in a way, like the Sphinx in the myth of Oedipus, which I may write some things about later, though. But Oedipus had to answer the riddle of the Sphinx, and the answer to the riddle of the Sphinx was basically, the question was, like what walks on two legs in the day, or wait, what crawls on four legs in the day, what walks on what walks on four legs in the morning, what walks on two legs in the daytime, and in the evening walks on three legs. And Oedipus was to answer that it was man in three stages: at birth, or in the early stages of his life, he crawls as a baby, and then as a grown man he stands on his own 2 feet, and then as an older man he is crunched over on a cane, basically walking on 3 legs, and this myth was set to him to answer on the threat of death being cast off the top of the pyramid, right? And forgive me if I butchered the myth, but that's the gist of it, all right? And he was able to answer, and he received plenteous glory for being able to answer it. However, there were some catastrophes that followed. And it basically goes to show, though, that when we are recognizing the crazy, outrageous, libidinous energy that's inside of the unconscious, when we come to a proper understanding of it and find out how to canalize it, that's not the end. That's not the end. There's still other perils that are left for us to step into, and and it's basically going to lead to fate and destiny. And what are we all destined for at the end of the day anyways? Death. We're all destined for death. We have fate, good fate, bad fates that await us all the way up until death. And we can get there in the robes of a philosopher, we can get there in the rags of a poor person, or we can get there with a crown on our head and a nice robe and a nice scepter to boot as well, though too. The choice is really up to us, and and really the choices trickle down through our genius or through our daemon, and how we align ourselves to calling through those auspices, or through that auspice, if you will. So Fortuna and the word fortune are in BHER1, Proto-Indo-European, and BHER2. And this idea also, or BHER2, has the word Bruin, and the word bear, and the word berserker in it as well. And the last word, berserker, is of great import because it kind of lets you sample what that energy, that libidinous energy, and what that calling, that enthusiasm can be like. It can intoxicate you, because the berserkers were Germanic, Nordic soldiers that basically would raid villages naked with the skins of bears or boars or different animals on them, and they before they went out into battle, they would drink this concoction that was alcoholic, and this alcoholic concoction also had psilocybin or some type of psilocybin bearing fungi inside of it that gave them a different sense perception. And what would happen is, when they would go into these this trance, they would actually think and believe that they became this beast or this animal, this berserker, right? And what would end up happening is, it would cause them to be, in some ways, per some of the stories, almost in some ways impervious to damage. They would be able to commit great, violent, amazing acts as they rip through these villages and claim more territory and land, And this is the same thing that the libido does, especially on a high level of interest, be it enthusiasm, past enthusiasm, obsession, compulsion, worship. When you're filled with the Spirit, that's actually the same thing that happened with Samson. When he became filled with the Spirit, he was able to kill many hundreds of Philistines. You see, when you're enthused, when you have that energy inside of you, and you're in line with your calling, and you have that divine right that you feel inside to do what it is that you're going to do, what ends up happening is you're able to create real amazing situations. You're able to make some real amazing things happen. I just caught some glimpses of some of my accolades in the days of my past, when I felt I was right, and I was possessed by the anima in the spirit, aka enthused, or in a worshipful reverie, just angry, or on a high level of spiritual enthusiasm to get something done, and I got it done, and I made it happen in ways that people still remember to this day. And that's where this whole idea on this third portion, you're calling this enthusiasm, this inspiriting, can be a possession, an anima or animus possession for a woman, right? Anima for man, animus for woman. It can make you turn back after you're done doing what you're doing and saying, man, that wasn't me. Like I tripped out. I didn't mean to do that, or with the proper adjustment and with the proper viewpoint and with the proper angle and the proper direction, pointing this the right way, you can take your enthusiasm and do some really, really, really amazing things that touch people's lives in ways that you couldn't just, being attentive at a normal job and, going through the motions. Maybe some days your attention peaks to desire or interest in your job, but maybe you get no further than that. There's some things that you can link yourself to that are outside of that, and this is just what I urge people to do, is to link yourself to something that is higher than desire. Link yourself something to higher than just like, yeah, I'm paying attention or I'm interested. Like, it's cool to be attentive to something, it's cool to be interested to something, though, but how many years does somebody have to go along feeling that way, feeling I'm paying attention or feeling interested? How long does somebody have to go before they break or before they feel like they're trapped in somebody else's life? We have to find out where that God image is in us and find out where it's leading us, and by all means break free from the norm, because it's going to be something that's kind of abnormal sometimes, and live that out and do that thing and reap the benefits, the positive benefits, and do it in such a way that it helps other people. Do it in such a way that it helps you to provide for your family. Do it in such a way that it helps you to provide for others. That's explaining the Japanese idea of ikigai, and I probably butchered that rendering of that Japanese word, and I'm gonna throw something up on the screen to basically show what that is, because it has a lot to do with canalization of libido in such a way that, in an all-encompassing way, so many more people can be touched in a positive way with what it is that you're doing. But this idea borderlines on one of two ways. If you're taking your taking the call to express your libido, the desire, that life energy in your psyche, in a way that could be just selfish and harmful, you may be you may be straddling the fence, trying not to hit the divider, and I tell you, what's on both sides of that fence is death, and also probably hell or jail. But when you're following a way to canalize this and make it your libido, that psychic energy, that life force energy that's pushing you towards something higher, towards something out of the norm, and it's something that can help other people, what you're doing is you're putting this energy into a format that is existential and that can give to so many more other people. That's ikigai. It gets to the center of you and who you really are meant to be. All right. So now I'm going to continue on with the fourth plate, because we're getting at that hour mark. All right. So now I talked about the third Proto-Indo-European root, or the third portion per the BHER 1 and 2 root, and that third footnote that I spoke on, right, when I mentioned Fortuna, deals also with the fourth portion of this writing, fourth and last portion, and we will be done here. In the fourth picture, which is plate number 24A, all right? Soul kneels before him, and who is him? Mithras, acting as the transpersonal personified, the deity of light, fire, and libido, who is also soul. And this presents some duplicity here, yet it is clarified when thought of in this manner. He, or any, acting out the libidinous act out of divine impulse, is acting as an image or emissary of the transpersonal. In order to do so in balance, he has to have had subdued his own ego. He's basically taken a mature relation to his ego, a mature relation to also to his expression of libido, his expression of psychic energy lived out in that life. He in reality is doing this in act. Now, I also go off and talk about martial arts a little bit here in relation to this. Martial arts, real Budo arts, Budo meaning martial arts, right? But Budo is the way of the warrior. Teach that you are not fighting against another opponent or opposer when one physically does so, right? You're physically doing that, it so seems, but you're not fighting against somebody else. You are fighting against your own ego. This is a perfect symbol of that, and also mimics initiatory rites in which the one human being that is initiated is worshipped as a god in respect to the rite. In respect to the divine, this is why we bow to opponents in Budo. You know, when I stand before an opponent, I'll bow to him before we commence a battle, all right? There's no wonder why Mithraism has a mystery of initiation followed by soldiers. No wonder. Which presents many more obvious reasons besides the aforementioned, if one is to study a bit on it, of why many soldiers subscribe to the religion or the initiation cult of Mithras. The etymology of the word nimbus, which is Pienebh, which is cloud, yields the idea of being shrouded in darkness, the darkness of a cloud, which is how Jehovah shows himself forth, casting thunderbolts upon his foes like Zeus. See Wisdom of Solomon 5:21. I'll put that up on the screen. This word nimbus gives the idea also of ego death and subjugation to the true will, whose reflection is replicated in the libido when man is rightly disposed towards it via right perspective, in accordance with the idea that embraces divine laws of karma appropriately and executes it as deed karma rightly. When the ego is in right order, it recognizes itself as not or nothing, giving way to the true will, waiting upon it. See Sephiroth, number 61, or the book of Numbers, number 61, which is a reference to Ayin and Ani, which mean nothing, and also ego, self, and I. This is the description under one numeral of what I just spoke of earlier as far as like recognizing the ego as nothing, all right? Now, this represents yielding to the unconscious as the receptacle of the divine influence of self. Now, below Proto-Indo-European root NEBH, ideas form of becoming one who is aware of being bound to a contract. Mithras is the god of contract, right? Now, Proto-Indo-European root NED, to tie or bind. Now we're further developing this idea. This is linking Mithras, the god of oaths and bonds, in a way to Varuna as well, though too, which is a Indic deity. It's an Eastern deity. Now, this understanding that you're bound in a contract to death and by accepting the death of the ego and the body on due occasions, overcoming death, and from that standpoint reaching or attaining, which are some other words that come within this ideological line of Proto-Indo-European roots. So reaching or attaining through energy, limitless energy of the pure will, destiny, purpose, the goal. And via this energy to be transferred to carried to the finish line. And what's the finish line? We spoke about this earlier. C, Proto-Indo-European root NEK1 and NEK2. NEK1 is death. But the idea of nectar, the drink of the gods of immortality, is here. And then NEK2, to reach, attain, becoming. So becoming, we're all trying to reach, to attain, becoming. To know who we truly are. And a lot of times that is done through the deed. And through what type of deed? It's a bold deed. It's a deed that goes against what everybody wants you to be. Because becoming means getting into your own individuality, and you can be just what everybody else wants you to be, and that is completely normal. Clap, clap, clap. Good for you. Not hating on your game plan or the way you're rolling, right? The PIE root, BHER, to carry, is mentioned. This root also has the idea of fruitfulness. Death, as mentioned previously, leads to libidos, quote unquote, the pure wills, quote unquote, transformation, and bears one to a higher level of existence, rebirth, and renewal. All right? And that's what this whole idea that I'm talking about is about. We are done with this paper, and we are at our mark. But I'm speaking about this situation that is, it's going to be taken by some people like, man, this is a really radical teaching. This guy's a radical. Oh my gosh. Stepping aside, stepping away from just the normal, everyday thing that we're supposed to be doing in society to follow our own pure will. Yes, you have to find a way to do that. And the best way to do it is to take up your cross, just like Jesus Christ did on the Via Dolorosa, on the way of the rose. And the rose is symbolic of the self, on the way of the self, on the way to the symbol that represents the whole of your being, who you really truly are. And guess what? He was crucified, died, rose again. The libido, the energy inside of you that Christ represents, the sun, never dies. So the thing is, though, is although I'm getting older, although I could be killed tomorrow, something could happen to me, I could fall down during one of these icy seasons and break my neck. Who knows, right? At the end of the day, the energy of who I truly was always live on and will always make a way, possibly if we believe in reincarnation, to a new form. Maybe I need to continue. Maybe I see the true self. Maybe I have overcome. Maybe I do finally enter my full becoming. You know, all hypothetical, but when all is said and done, in this time we need to take up that burden, just like Mithras did on his back. And Mithras was said to be a god that died and was born again and things of that nature as well, though, too. We have a lot of the imports of Mithraism and Zorostrianism, as you may decipher from what I read earlier in the ideas of Christianity. And some people would want to get hung up on their own subscription to doctrine and hate on that, but in and through the lens viewpoint of syncretism, I believe that I have been renewed through the understanding of Mithraism and some of the symbolic aspects, because like I said, I don't know everything about it. I'm not a buff on it, a big buff on it. I know a lot of the base symbology of it, and having studied tarot, having studied what we last talked about too, the heptagram, the 7 planetary watchers, for instance, right? Or these 7 archetypal energies, if you will, that are part of the collective unconscious that are being brought down into us, and that we feel inside of us as desires that need to be lived out, expressed, and that go and link back to mythological content, that we can look back and say, hey, I'm living out this myth. I'm not this deity, but this energy is impressing itself on my life, or I'm following this path. My libido is being canalized out in this way. It's being channeled in this way. It's following this path. Being able to see these things through the lens of even Mithraism have caused me to even look at Christianity. A lot of us have in the past been hurt through the church, have gone through problematic situations in the church. I myself, when I was 14 years old, was excommunicated from a church. Imagine that. Excommunicated formally. And I kept reading the Bible. I kept seeking. I kept learning. And one of the reasons, before I terminate this podcast, one of the reasons why I still look into the Bible, why I still have a love for Scripture, why I have a love for all religions, literatures in plural, but they're really all religion literature. Religion being religare, linking back to what? Source. You know, the reason why I have so much of a respect for it is that it shows you the way to canalize this energy, this God energy that's inside of you. The kingdom of God is within you. This energy is an energy that expresses itself in power. It acts itself out in power. It shows itself out in power. It's not just some fairy tale story that we go and we hear about on Sunday, or you crack open your Bible and then you make a prayer and say, oh, God will handle it. It's faith without works is dead. I need you to do something. You do have to work. And through this God energy and the fact that the self is a real thing and it's everywhere, I'm gonna do the other half of the work for you. And that's something that I may talk about here on a later program, on how to actually take usually what's a 10-fold system and break it down into 5, because truthfully you're only doing half the work. That's the beauty about the fact that this type of ideological thought, this type of practice that I'm speaking about every time I come here and talk, it's a catalyst to life. It's a catalyst to you getting on the road to your life and actually producing many manifold positive results. And you're only doing half of the work, because guess what? There's a higher, more numinous energy that's doing the other half of the work for you. So I'd like to leave you with that. Think about that, digest that. Hopefully you've enjoyed this talk and gotten something very good out of it. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. If you like this video, please share it. And if you want to hear anything more about Mithraism, and you really want to get off into a deep study of it and really exhaust a lot of the areas, there's a lecture by Reza Georgiani, I think his last name is, and I will leave that in the links, and I may leave that in the links for you, because I was able to listen to that quite a while back, and it was an eye-opener, because I was at the time that I had this dream, I was looking all over for something that could explain to me more about Mithras, the idea of Mithras. And the thing is after I think about maybe the 4 CE or 4 AD, it went under. And it possibly lives on through Masonic ritual rite and fraternal brotherhood of the Masons, because if you think about the last thing that I'll say, if you think about the fact that Mithras is the god of the oath, and that it's he who binds through the handshake. There are many different handshakes and key grips of Freemasonry that basically explain the meaning of the name and Mithras office in the acts that they do with their handshake, showing what ranks they are, you know, showing what level they've been initiated into, you know. So this important religion, this important initiatory cult had been carried on, obviously, right, into a whole lot of other religions, a whole lot of other beliefs. And that's why, for instance, on a talk like this, I'm gonna put something out here about it. So have a good rest of your night, day, afternoon, wherever you are at in the world. Thank you for lending an ear, and I hope you've been enriched by listening. Later.